extraordinary diversity of life on Earth is the result of a fragile balance that dictates the fundamental laws of life and allows different forms of life to interact, grow, and reproduce. The culmination of eons of evolution, life expresses itself in a colorful canvas that gives the Earth its unique character. Our own survival depends on this biodiversity, from the tiniest life forms to the very largest. The first forms of life arose in the oceans about 3.8 billion years ago. Today, they still support an array of fragile ecosystems that continue to astonish us as we learn more about them. But our planet's biodiversity is threatened. Today, plant and animal species are disappearing at an accelerated rate, probably unequaled in Earth's history. We must regain a balance between all species if we want to preserve the ecosystem services that nature provides. These services are what allow our own species to exist. Oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's surface. They represent 300 times more inhabitable volume than all of Earth's land habitats. It is estimated that more than 2 million species live in the oceans, about a quarter of all living species. Over 90% have yet to be documented by science. For scientists, unraveling the ocean's mysteries is a formidable challenge. Jean Lemire, mission leader of the oceanographic schooner Sedna IV.
Our mission, 1,000 Days for the Planet, is in the spirit of the great explorers of yesteryears. With scientists, we are traveling the world's ocean to better understand the conservation challenges that we all face. And there are many, many challenges, because the ocean still bears the scars of our past abuses.
The history of our exploitation of the oceans is not a glorious one. In order to supply European lanterns with oil, the great whales were hunted to the brink of extinction. We are still living with the consequences of this carnage today. Many species are still on the endangered list. Fin whales, blue whales, minke whales, right whales, and dozens of other species are struggling to recover from our bloody past. Despite the fragile moratorium that now protects most species, some countries still hunt whales in the name of science or of culture.
That is ridiculous because we don't need to take the whales for science, in quotes, especially if you use the subproduct of that science to sell it in the market.
Scientific whaling, overexploitation of ocean resources, illegal fishing. The pressure we place on the oceans has become unsustainable, and these already considerable conservation challenges have been complicated by even more insidious problems, such as plastic pollution.
The gyre, where a lot of it concentrates, some people say it's the size of Texas or even twice the size of Texas. So we're talking incredible amounts of items out there and debris.
The oceans have always supported life, but if that life is today being threatened, is it not time to rethink our relationship with the ocean's inhabitants? Of all the great oceanic migrants, Whales are without question one of the most emblematic symbols of conservation. The Sedna has stopped in the Azores. The rich Atlantic waters here attract 24 species of cetacean. Though they have a long history of whale hunting, the Azorians gave up this tradition in the late 1980s. Richard Sears has studied whales for over 30 years. Every spring, the great diversity of species off the Azores lures him here to study the migratory patterns of large Atlantic whales. But it's not an easy task. Following these great migrating nomads of the oceans is a challenge for scientists.
OK, donc, on se met une heure de départ à 13h, 13h30, heure locale. Richard travels the world to photograph different species. He introduced me to the fascinating world of whales. We often work together, and I have traveled with him to different oceans, always with the same passion, the same desire to learn more about them.
Scientists are a bit like the hunters of yesterday. In modern science, the camera has replaced the harpoon. The quest is the same, but the goal has changed. Today, we have a real desire to protect whales. These species are slowly recovering from the excessive commercial whaling that forever changed the face of our oceans. Among the victims of commercial whale hunting, the right whale. A symbol of our past abuses, the right whale is a coastal species, slow and easy to approach, and was a preferred target of the harpoon. In less than 70 years in the 19th century, North American whalers killed over 190,000 right whales in the North Atlantic. Hunting right whales was banned in 1935, but the damage was done. At that time, the population was estimated at fewer than 100 individuals in the entire North Atlantic. Today, after over 3/4 of a century of protection, only about 350 representatives of this severely threatened species remain. As hunting techniques improved, whalers were able to go after fast-swimming, ocean-going species like the blue whale, the largest animal on the planet. Up to 30 meters in length, and over 100 tons of power and grace. Before commercial hunting, the worldwide population of blue whales was estimated at over 350,000 individuals. Over the past century, nearly 99% of this population was slaughtered. Richard Sears is an expert on blue whales. He has developed a photo ID technique so that scientists can now identify and monitor the movements of this species, which is still threatened with extinction.
The pigmentation pattern on the sides of blue whales allows us to reliably identify individuals. We have identified about 325 blue whales in the North Atlantic, including many photos taken in the Azores. We have many partners here who take good pictures that allow us to match photos from year to year. In this case, Johanna, who works here in Horta, photographed this whale in 2002. and the animal returned in 2010. That's a long time between matches. I think it's the longest match we've had here in the Azores.
For over 30 years, Richard Sears has compiled photographs of blue whales. His catalog includes several hundred individuals in the North Atlantic, but their migration routes remain completely shrouded in mystery. The humpback whale was also hunted all over the world. It is estimated that in the mid-19th century, the worldwide population of humpbacks was over 125,000 individuals. In less than 100 years, nearly 95% of the population was wiped out by whalers. By the mid-1960s, only a few thousand survivors remained. In the 1980s, a broad scientific effort led to a series of techniques that today form the basis of our knowledge about this species. Among these techniques is the identification of individuals using photographs of the tail flukes.
Here's an example of photo identification of a humpback whale. It's the equivalent of a fingerprint for this species. They are kind enough to raise their fluke when they dive, and the pattern on the underside of the tail is different for each individual. It can vary from totally black to totally white. Studying individuals helps us learn about the species, and now we have extensive catalogs of humpbacks all over the planet. All this data makes it a powerful system because it allows us to learn about the movements of these animals, their migrations, their numbers, and newcomers to the population.
This technique led to the discovery of gathering sites for the species in the North Atlantic. These feeding areas are frequented by different humpback whale populations from spring to fall. Scientific research has shown that populations are faithful to these gathering sites. A humpback whale that frequents coastal waters in a particular area will generally return to the same place the following season. Every winter, most North Atlantic humpbacks migrate south to Silverbank off the coast of the Dominican Republic. They gather on this protected shallow area to mate and give birth. But scientists only discovered the importance of silverbank in the 1980s.
84, it was my first time I saw a whale. We didn't know even where was located silverbank. We heard about it, but we didn't know. The density of silverbank, if it's not the highest, it could be one of the highest of the world.
Nowadays, everything we know about the animal's movements between here and the north seems obvious. But back then, we knew very little, almost nothing. We knew they came here, but it had never been studied in depth. So we came, and we made a great many photo IDs. Each of us recognized animals from the different areas we were working in.
Over 30 years after the discovery of silverbank, scientists are back. They are now trying to determine the migration routes used by humpback whales between silverbank and their different feeding areas. For biologist Amy Kennedy, this is a chance to deploy satellite transmitters.
Smallest guy, that one. Get up!
It's the end of the season, so there are lots of males in large groups who are very active. There's a struggle between the escort and what we call the challengers. The escort is the male closest to the female, and all the other males fight to be as close to the female as possible.
Before installing the satellite beacons, the scientists try to identify the sex of the animals. They use a crossbow that shoots an arrow with a hollow tip to take a sample of the animal's skin and blubber. Using genetic profiles, scientists can determine the kinship among the different individuals.
So we have developed also a large database of whale tissue. Besides the samples that were taken for DNA studies, we also developed the archive. So it's a genetical catalog. We have whales identified genetically, and this, together with their photo IDs, they complete the information. And if anybody wants to study the population, we have another, let's say, another piece of the sample, which is the archive. They are intact as they were taken, and they are frozen, keeping their qualities. So if anybody needs to do any further study, like molecular study, biomolecular study, so they just need to go to the archive and take a piece and interpret it.
To deploy the satellite transmitter, the scientist's boat must slip into a group of males, competing for the favors of a female. It's a delicate maneuver.
I need to be as close as possible, and when I shoot the tag, it's not a matter of just hitting the whale. I could shoot from a long distance and just hit the whale. It has to be in a really very specific spot where the tag goes. So I'm trying to tag very high on the animal. I'm trying to tag just below the dorsal fin and just below the hump. And that's because the tissue there is very dense. So I can track the whale underwater. I see what the animal's doing. I indicate to Oswaldo to speed up, slow down. I can see the whale. You can tell when it's coming up. I get ready. But when I know the whale's going to come up, and preferably when it arches, I'm focused on a perpendicular shot directly in one little spot, and I really, in my head, I see almost nothing else. Oh, that's perfect. It's good. I'm really happy.
The transmitter is attached to the animal's back using a modified line thrower, which shoots the transmitter's anchoring hooks into the whale's flesh without causing too much injury.
Position very high and in very dense tissue, so it will stay in a long time, and it will transmit every surfacing. 11.
That's the tag. 7.
It's perfect. It's good. I'm really happy. I'm happy with today. The tags that we got on were in good positions, and I'm relieved, and I can't wait to start tracking them. I don't want to get to the computer now and see where they go. So this is the 4 whales that we tagged on the 2nd. So this is 4 full days of track for all 4 whales, which is really exciting because the cool thing is that all 4 of these whales were tagged in the same exact group. They were all there together. And then you can see that each one of them has gone a completely different direction. One whale has stayed almost exactly around the same spot that we tagged it. One whale has moved over to Mouchoir Bank. And one whale looks like it's starting its migration up north. And then another whale looks like it's moving to the southeast, which is really unique. And we hope that these keep lasting because we'll be able to check them every day from here on out. And I check them a lot, so constantly checking my tags and making sure they're all working and see where everybody's going. And
you know, it's very important, this preliminary information, because we have seen that in just 5 days after the tag, the whales are outside of the boundaries of the sanctuary. So for our country, this information is very important in terms of maybe developing new policies for conservation, maybe expanding the boundaries of the sanctuary. You see how important it is for the sanctuary to be included in these areas.
So can we sort of amuse ourselves with the thought of where these guys might be going? And I would say that the Mouchoir Bank guy has a good chance of going to the Gulf of Maine.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a very good guess. I think these other whales, if they move offshore and then start heading north, they have a straight shot to somewhere else. So.
Iceland or maybe even Norway?
Yeah. There are very distinct feeding grounds in the North Atlantic, and they're characterized by high site fidelity, which means that if you go to the Gulf of Maine, you are likely to see whales that you've been seeing for generations. And it's the same with all of the major feeding grounds, Norway, Iceland, Newfoundland, Greenland. And it's all driven by the mother. So the mother will bring her calf there on its first migration. The calf remembers that migratory route and will continue to return there throughout its lifespan. Researchers in all of the feeding grounds have several generations of whales. I mean, we'll see a calf and we'll know its mother and its grandmother and its great-grandmother and its great-great-grandmother, which is awesome, just really, really great. It really shows that these whales are multinational world travelers. They are not Dominican whales, and they're not American whales or Canadian whales. They are whales of the entire North Atlantic. They cross so many different borders across so many different countries. And so we need to all work together to help preserve this species.
While some of the transmitters operated for a limited amount of time, whale number 87765 broke all records by transmitting for 57 consecutive days. The migration data of whale 87765 stopped off the coast of Newfoundland. Where will it go next? Will it remain around Newfoundland, or will it continue its migration towards Iceland, Greenland, or even Norway? The migration data confirms that humpback whales, which do not eat for the entire 4 months of their breeding period, begin to feed again as soon as they arrive in the rich waters of the north. A humpback whale requires 2 tons of food per day. But can the current state of the oceans support any eventual population increase of these species? The composition of the oceans is undergoing a transformation. Their biomass has declined sharply since the start of human exploitation. For whales, seabirds, turtles, sharks, and all migratory species that rely on the oceans, the future is more uncertain than ever.
The food that marine populations need to survive is in decline. Scientists are worried about the growing number of dead zones in the oceans. Off the coast of Bermuda, we met with scientists from the Corwith Creamer a research vessel studying the composition of the oceans. They recently discovered a new continent of plastic in the Atlantic Ocean.
Sea Education Association essentially is an educational organization that teaches students about the ocean. We do a lot of basic measurements, and the value of those relatively simple measurements is that we go year after year more or less to the same places. So for instance, our plastic research, where we're doing relatively simple things, each student project is relatively simple, but they build on each other over time. So what they're going to do now is set up the new stun net, and this is our old standby net. We've been doing it the same way for 30 years. And realistically, it may not be the most efficient way to do it, but we don't want to change what we're doing because we have a long-term database, and so we want to keep doing it the same way every time.
A few years ago, the discovery of a substantial accumulation of plastic in the Pacific Ocean came as a bombshell all over the world. No one suspected the same thing in the Atlantic, where the Sea Education Association has been gathering data for 20 years. But in fact, concentrations of plastic in the Atlantic equal or surpass those observed in the Pacific. And this invisible patch extends into the feeding areas of the ocean's great migrators.
The plastic comes from land. We think that probably around 80% of it is actually shore-based. So it's from you and me. We're trying to do our best. We're trying to recycle, but it's a windy day. The piece of plastic, the yogurt container blows out of the recycle bin, gets in the water system in the river, ends up in the ocean. I just wanted to show you some of the kinds of things that we find. This piece is broken, and you can see it's starting to get brittle. It's being weathered by the sun, by just wave action, getting quite brittle into small pieces, easy to break. And we're seeing numbers as high as 250,000 pieces per square kilometer, or even higher. Now granted, most of those pieces are tiny, millimeter-sized pieces, but still, it's a big ocean. When you extrapolate that to the size of the ocean and the patches, it's a lot of plastic.
Our plastic garbage ends up in the ocean, where exposure to sun and waves weakens its structure and breaks it into countless tiny pieces that are now inundating the oceans. What is misleadingly called a garbage patch is actually more like a soup of tiny particles, often floating just below the surface.
Did you see some increase of the numbers of pieces of plastic over the 22 years of research?
No, and a lot of variability, but no real increase over that time. So the question is, where is that plastic going? And one idea is, of course, it could be the microbes.
And yet, our society is using more and more plastic. Microbes and bacteria may play an important role in breaking down this plastic, but at what price?
It's hard to say whether it's good news or bad news. Is it good news that it's making plastic go away? There are a lot of additives in plastic, and plastic also acts as a bit of a sponge, absorbing toxic chemicals. So you could ask yourself, is it better for those chemicals to stay in one place in the plastic or to be released into the ocean?
If plastic acts like a sponge, where do all those toxins go? Recent scientific studies in the Pacific Ocean estimate that fish consume between 12 and 24,000 tons of plastic every year.
And it still isn't exactly clear how much these toxins transfer up the food chain from plastic. There has been some work done to show it does happen, but absolutely, we're polluting the ocean, and then it does stay in the food chain, and then we eat the fish.
We produce about 300 million tons of new plastic every year. Half of this, about 150 million tons, is only used once, then thrown away. Worldwide, less than 10% of the plastic we produce is recycled. The development of plastics began in the 20th century. It is estimated that hundreds of millions of tons of plastic have found their way into the oceans in recent decades. Much of this garbage is still floating today. Plastic in the oceans accumulates in specific areas all over the planet, where the major ocean currents concentrate the floating plastic. These immense vortexes, called ocean gyres, draw in and accumulate garbage over wide areas. This pollution ends up in 5 major ocean basins: the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic and Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the most well-known ocean gyre, the North Pacific. The Midway Atoll, north of the Hawaiian Islands, seems incredibly remote. But for many Pacific seabird species, it is an important refuge and nesting site. The island's most abundant bird is the Laysan albatross, classified a vulnerable species. They come here to lay their eggs and raise their chicks, far from any predators. But the real threat to the Laysan albatross is much more insidious than any predator.
John? Yes? You look at Midway, and it's so remote. It's in the middle of this beautiful Pacific Ocean, and your first thought is it should be pristine, untouched, white sand beaches with nothing on it. A lot of disturbance. But instead, we see lots of plastic. Here, and then just beach disturbance. So it's been a slow.
The winds and the currents of the North Pacific Gyre combine to concentrate plastic in this area. It is not unusual to see the beaches of Midway littered with all sorts of large floating objects, which must continually be collected. But a closer look at the white sand beaches reveals the true catastrophe. Every new wave washes up more tiny particles of plastic and a multitude of garbage that pose a real threat to the island's abundant wildlife. Volunteers come from all over to try and clean up the shores. But the work must be repeated week after week, the result of decades of carelessness and indifference. The same tsunami that hit Japan in 2011 also washed significant amounts of garbage floating in the area onto Midway. The huge wave flooded parts of the island, carrying many large objects far inland. But biologists are more concerned with smaller bits of garbage, transported here not by water, but by air.
The way that plastic is arriving in the interior is that the adult albatross are foraging 1,000 miles or so from here. They're picking up the plastic because they either mistake it for food or food is attached to it. They bring it back here and they regurgitate it to their chicks. And this happens about every 3 days or so this time of year, and the male and female take turns. And they're feeding mainly squid to their chick. You know, it's really difficult to see, but if we look closely, this could be the point where a little bit of plastic is transferring from the adult to the chick. At some point, some are able to regurgitate a pellet or a bolus and get rid of the plastic, and others don't get rid of it, and as they die, it remains inside their body. This bird is a couple months old, so should we open it up and see if there's plastic inside? Okay. We'll look inside this one and see what we have. And right away we see plastic, yeah. So here's a couple of larger fragments right there. And yeah, so this bit of plastic is definitely part of a larger piece, and some of the plastic might have sharp edges and they could actually puncture the stomach lining, so that might be a possible cause of mortality for this chick. So it could be the load of plastic plus sharp edges and then contaminants as well that are part of it.
That's probably from a grocery bag or something, you know. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a good chance.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting piece. We see those occasionally and we think they're some sort of fishing float, perhaps from Asia. So that's a big item.
Yeah.
Definitely takes up a lot of space. The plastic load in healthy albatross compared to albatross that were found dead, and there was a significant difference, almost twice as much plastic in the birds that died compared to the healthy ones. And so we can't definitively say that plastic kills albatross chicks, but I think what we can say right now is that it is additive to their mortality. Most of the chicks die from dehydration, and so if you think about plastic taking up physical space in the bird's stomach, they have less food, less moisture, and they might be more apt to dehydrate.
Incredible. In 5 or 10 minutes, I collected all this. It's really upsetting. We find a lot of bottle caps and lighters. A lot of lighters. And many floaters like this. They look a lot like what the birds would find. This is a squid without the head. Clearly, they look very much alike. Here's a lighter, and here's a squid. It's not surprising that the albatrosses mix them up.
We see a lot of spacer tubes that are part of the oyster aquaculture industry in Asia or in Japan. So they have these lines that go down and they have these small little oyster cages. And in order to space them on the line, they have these plastic spacer tubes. And when the line breaks apart, the spacer tubes are all over the ocean. That's pretty common. And I suspect some of the items are so big that they can't regurgitate the pellet. And maybe, again, that's linked back to mortality. If they physically can't get that stuff up, maybe that's another reason why they perish as well. Some of the really surprising things that you find in there, toothbrushes. I mean, you'd think a large toothbrush couldn't be swallowed by an albatross, but it is. Syringes, unfortunately. All sorts of kids' toys are in there, light bulbs, so lots of really interesting things. And if we extrapolate for the entire population, that's about 5 tons of plastic that the adults are feeding to their chicks each year. That's really amazing. Even if we stop putting plastic in the ocean today, it's going to be decades before it's all cleaned up. You know, there's just so much out there. In fact, the gyre where a lot of it concentrates, some people say it's the size of Texas or even twice the size of Texas. So we're talking incredible amounts of items out there and debris.
The age of plastic should have been a revolution for the world. But the invention of nearly indestructible synthetic products has instead become a real menace to the future of the Earth's ecosystems.
Once it goes into the ocean, nobody's figured out the appropriate technique to be able to start to clean up the ocean. We basically have to wait until it reaches land. The best thing that we can do is to make people aware and prevent it from reaching the ocean in the first place.
The solution has to start with us, with our use of plastic, but above all, by how we get rid of our garbage. It's not that complicated. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to recycle our plastic.
Il y a des missions qui sont plus difficiles que d'autres. Moi, je trouve que...
Some missions are harder than others. Coming here to Midway has been pretty tough. Of course, I expected to see plastic from the oceans, but I never thought I would see so much. I think we have gone too far. The oceans are filled with plastic. Each wave brings more, and there are a lot of waves. It's clear that the presence of humans is felt all over the planet now. And unfortunately, I don't mean that in a good way. Sometimes human nature is pretty hard to understand.
Protecting the ocean's great migrators is still a challenge for scientists. We must take inspiration from our successes to build momentum and create the vital wave of change that will determine the future of our world. Today, the humpback whale is undergoing a population boom all over the planet. In calving areas, like the Dominican Republic, calves are being born in greater numbers, helping to secure the future of this species. The reconciliation between our two species is translating into an apparently shared curiosity. No one who has come face to face with a whale has not come away profoundly moved.
Well, the mother came up kind of unexpectedly too, and I didn't know where to go.
She made a full turn. Mais c'est de voir comment...
It's incredible to see how calm and serene they are. You're not scared. You're not scared at all. These are what I call little moments of eternity. They stick in your head, and they're gonna be there forever. It's an amazing feeling.
It was fantastic. I've never had an experience like that before.
Amazing. Amazing.
Incredible. After an experience like that, you can die happy. Incredible.
We have managed to save most whale species from extinction because people mobilized against whaling. We no longer need whale blubber to produce an oil that was once considered irreplaceable. Citizen mobilization may be the salvation of the oceans if we are going to rescue them from the devastating effects of our own consumption habits.
I'm by nature an optimist. I realize it's a very serious problem and it's going to get worse before it gets better, but I'm an optimist that we can at least stabilize the situation.
Hopefully, over time, we can make some positive change and reduce the amount of plastic that's going in the ocean and reduce the amount that albatross are getting. Because ultimately, it's going to affect you and I and all levels of the food chain. We see the same phenomena. The small fish have plastic in them, the small zooplankton, all these different things. So we need to make a difference.
When industrial whaling ended, there were only about 5,000 humpback whales left. Today, there are over 60,000 in the world's oceans, a great conservation success story. When people mobilize, they can accomplish great things. Today, witnessing the magnificent spectacle of the Earth's last giants is certainly one more motivation to conserve the extraordinary biodiversity of our planet.
Our oceans are facing considerable conservation challenges, but with better science, we are beginning to understand them so we can better protect them. The grand spectacle of life continues in all its stunning beauty. But time is running out if we want to preserve the fragile balance of biodiversity. A biodiversity that allows all forms of life to thrive, including our own. In their quest to understand the major issues of biodiversity, the Sedna 4 team heads to Panama, a paradise for plants and animals. With 1,500 species of trees, more than 250 species of mammals, and nearly 1,000 species of birds. Arriving from the Caribbean, the port of Colón, with its giant cranes rising into the sky, is an astonishing sight. Panama is at the southern end of Central America, between Costa Rica and Colombia. This small country is famous for its canal across the Isthmus of Panama, a maritime passageway that allows ships to quickly cross between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
It's impressive because every year there are approximately 1,500 boats that navigate the Panama Canal to transport hundreds of millions of tons of cargo.
The Sedna Four also traverse the Panama Canal. Dwarfed by giant ocean freighters, the sailboat makes its way through the complex system of locks that allow ships to sail between the different elevations of the shipping route between the two oceans. The narrow canal cuts through Panama's tropical forest, famous for its extraordinary biodiversity. And among all the animals of the forest, hides a small, fascinating creature, the sloth. The team stops on the island of Barro, Colorado, also called BCI, located right in the middle of the Panama Canal. The island is home to one of the largest tropical rainforest research centers in the world. Each year, hundreds of scientists come to the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute to better understand rainforest ecology. One of the world's eminent sloth experts, biologist Bryson Voyrin, awaits the team.
So here's our boat right down here.
Oh, great.
And we're going to go on a little short trip around the back side of the island and go look for our sloth.
3 toes or 2 toes?
The 3-toed sloth.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the more friendly type of sloth.
Great.
So here we are.
I started with sloths because I've always loved climbing trees, and I was really excited about working in the canopy in the rainforest because something like 80 or 90% of all of the biodiversity in the rainforest is up in the treetops. And sloths are a perfect animal for me to study because I can actually climb up the tree and catch them, and they can't run away all that fast. Now, I work a lot with the brown-throated 3-toed sloth, which is the sloth that's common to all of Panama. And they're a very slow-moving arboreal mammal, and they spend their entire lives in the canopy. BCI is an amazing forest to work in because it used to be a hilltop before the Panama Canal got flooded. And now, with the canal, it's actually an island that's been cut off from the mainland. And no one is allowed on BCI except for scientists with the Smithsonian. So it's a really amazing place to work because it's completely cut off from the rest of Panama, and it's right in the middle of the Panama Canal.
Because when they filled the canal, they didn't cut down the old trees. So right now, we're on the tops of trees. And depending on the water level, you can see they pop up a little bit, and the bad ones are the ones just below the water. And if you go over it with a boat, you can hit them. It's like a minefield. You know, boom, hit the wrong one, and it takes the engine off. So we swim back. Oh, there's a tree right there. Looks like a crocodile, but that's a tree. Jean, I think there's a sloth actually right in the top of that tree right over there. If we go right through this little canal, we can get to the back side of the tree.
Boat, actually, it's the easiest way to find sloths on BCI because you can actually see into the forest from the edge. Now, hiking around BCI, it'll take me up to 1 week to find a sloth. And that's a long time to find such an animal that's so common on BCI. But by boat, I can find several in one day.
So we're gonna go right through.
This is really not an easy task. First, you need to locate a sloth from the boat. Then you need to get onto the bank and walk around trying to find the same tree. No, it really takes skill.
think this is our tree.
Okay.
Right here. And I think I can just barely make out the sloth up there. Like right at the top of the tree.
Where? I don't see it.
Just in the top of the tree, right in the sunlight, right up there.
We have binoculars, and Bryson tells us where to look, but honestly, I never saw it.
And what's this here?
Huh? Oh, wow.
Is it
That's actually, this is sloth poop. It's this really strange thing with sloths. They only go to the bathroom on the ground. They spend their whole life in the trees except to go to the bathroom. So they climb all the way down once a week and go to the bathroom.
A monkey, a real monkey.
It's normally dramatically slower. The running motion he uses, I believe, is something he came up with himself. It's very unique.
Hey, come here. Hey.
That's fun to watch.
Hey. Grab the sloth real quick.
Okay. I have
Nice. Bryson has captured a female who shows no sign of aggression.
There you go.
Nice. Well, here's our sloth.
Do they drink water or just by the leaf?
Just by the leaves, actually. It's amazing that they never drink water. And in the dry season, I wonder how thirsty they get.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's doing yoga.
Yeah. Okay. Females have a call. They're attracted to the scent of the males. Males have an oil gland on their back. And when the female smells the oil, they go real high pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. It's another friend.
And the males will hear that call and will spend days looking for the female.
And what's the use? I know it's a ridiculous question, but what is the use of a sloth in the jungle?
That's actually a great question. When Europeans first discovered sloths, they thought that they're the most ridiculous animal in the world. They have poor vision, they have poor hearing, they can't walk on the ground, they're totally defenseless, they can get eaten by anything, and they thought they were just ridiculous. But when you think about it, they fill a perfect evolutionary gap in the forest. They actually eat up to 2% of all the leaves in the rainforest each year.
Wow.
So they have a huge impact on the forest. And just the fact that they're so slow and so, what people would think is ridiculous, but they're actually perfectly evolved. The way that I study sloths on BCI is by using radio collars on them, and once they have been fitted with a radio collar, I can track their movements around the rainforest using an antenna, and that way I can find them over the course of different days.
It doesn't move, huh?
Yeah, she's very calm. She's a happy one. Sometimes the sloths will fight you a little bit. They can be feisty, especially the big aggressive males, but she's happy. So, before we let her go, we'll get a weight of her.
Equipped with a new radio collar, this female is now ready to return to her environment. Unwittingly, she will be contributing to science, helping Bryson to better understand how sloths move in the forest. The Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute is located on one of the islands in Lake Gatun, an artificial lake created by a dam on the Chagres River that was built as part of the Panama Canal construction project.
We're actually sailing over a submerged forest. There are trees, railroads, even old villages under the ship's hull. It was all flooded when the dam was built.
This man-made island is now a protected area, reserved for scientists. Biologist Megan Eccles is a specialist in bees. She knows the island of Barro, Colorado well. She's been coming here regularly to do research for many years.
What's that strange noise?
Oh, that's the mantled howler monkey. The males have these specialized vocal sacs so they can make that huge growling sound that you hear. And the purpose of it is to announce to other groups of howler monkeys in the area where that particular group is located. One of the biggest threats to howler monkey personal security is conflicts with other groups. So to avoid conflict, the males in each group will howl at sunrise, sunset, before rain starts, and when they move into a new feeding patch. And it announces to the other groups, hey, we're here. So you can tell there's several groups vocalizing right now. It's because when one group announces its location, the others feel obligated to do the same so they can stay away from each other. I've got a bit of a reputation as the bee woman. So I collect colonies that fall in the forest or are located in inconvenient places, and it gives me a good diversity of species to work with. So I can look at community interactions, inter-colony behavior, that sort of thing. Bees are pollinators. They're pollinators in most major ecosystems. Forest systems are dependent on bees to get their reproduction done. Flowers have to be pollinated in order to form fruits. Fruits are needed to make seeds. Without any seeds, you don't have any seedlings. The forest can't regenerate itself. You take away the bees, you take away the forest's ability to grow and to heal if it's damaged. It's been shown if you deforest anywhere tropical, stingless bees and orchid bees don't adapt. So even if you have intact forests on either side of a large area that's logged, the bees won't be able to make the crossing. So if you lose them in one part of the forest, that forest is going to be in trouble.
That's the nest that you were talking about?
Mm-hmm, straight ahead.
Oh, wow.
It's right here.
Right there?
Mm-hmm, it's right here. Little yellow tube. What we're looking at now is a colony of a bee whose scientific name is Tetragonisca angustula. They actually don't have a common name like honeybees have a common name because there are hundreds of different species of stingless bee, far too many for each one to have an individual common name. This particular nest probably has about 1,500 bees in it. Oh, yeah. They're so calm and they're so serene. They're a very zen little bee.
And what is that substance?
The material that the nest entrance is made out of is actually a mixture of resins that they collect from trees, so just tree sap, and also a wax that they produce themselves. It's very soft, very pliable, and one of the reasons they leave the end so raw, mostly this yellow part is just wax, is because at night, this species will actually close their front door. They shut the nest entrance. And it's not so much to defend against predators as it is to defend against parasites, which are their biggest concern here. So there are a lot of species of bee that nest in the canopy, which is a little inconvenient. They're difficult to see. So one of the nice things about tree falls is they bring canopy nesting bees down to our level, so they're much easier to observe. Now be a little bit careful when we approach the nest. These bees bite, but they don't sting. So there's no venom involved. It's just like a little pinch.
That's a little bite?
Just a little bite.
But they're gonna bite, eh?
They are gonna bite, yeah.
Great. I love jungle.
So this is a colony of Sceptertogona. It's another stingless bee. Very social. They can live in absolutely massive colonies of thousands or tens of thousands of individuals. They are a bit aggressive, much more aggressive than the last bees we saw, but they only really respond to something that vibrates or shakes their nest. It's a direct threat to their babies and their queen.
How big it is?
This colony, it's probably several square feet, so very, very large space. They can get up to sometimes half a tree trunk if they're left alone and they're thriving. So those are the colonies that get into the hundreds of thousands of bees. The bees that are leaving are most likely foragers. You can tell which ones are foragers when they return. The ones that are searching for pollen have little balls of white or yellow stuff on their hind legs. Bees that are coming back with nectar, however, they're not identifiable when they're flying. They carry the nectar in their stomach. The pollen is for the larvae, the babies. They need protein to grow. The adults are fully grown. They don't need the protein. What they need are carbohydrates, sugars for energy. So the adults only consume the nectar.
Some are going out of the colony with something in their mouth. Are they cleaners?
They are cleaners, yeah. There's house cleaning going on today, apparently. So probably they are expanding the inside of this nest. Although some of the other bees who are leaving are probably cleaning out the bathroom, so to speak.
And what is the big problem with bees in the world?
There's no one problem. If there was, we might actually be able to solve it. In honeybee populations, something has been occurring in the last 10 years that scientists refer to as colony collapse disorder. It's this mysterious phenomenon where all the workers, all of the foraging bees in a colony will suddenly disappear, and they leave behind a healthy queen, healthy juveniles, but the workers are just gone, and without the workers, the colony dies. There have been a lot of studies that have tried to identify what is causing this, and we're really not that close to an answer still. There's a lot of research that suggests it could be fungus, it could be a virus, but the fungi and the viruses aren't found in every colony that collapses, so it's still unclear. There's a very famous quote by Albert Einstein who said that if bees were to disappear, society would collapse inside of 10 years. Fully 1/3 of the food that we consume is produced by bee pollination. So you can imagine we would lose hundreds of fruits, some vegetables, and it would have a huge impact on worldwide food availability. Prices would skyrocket for products like almonds, oranges, these basic things that people tend to grow relatively easily and consume readily. They're so dependent on bees that agricultural industry would grind to a halt in some areas. It would be devastating.
The team returns to the canal to locate the female sloth. The signal from its radio collar will guide the search and make it easier to recapture her.
On BCI, I worked on the behavior of three-toed sloths, looking at which plants they ate and how much they moved over the course of 2 years. So here's where we caught her before, and you can hear she's somewhere nearby. So that's the ping of her radio collar. But it's not all that strong of a signal. So what we can do is kind of do a 360 spin. Ooh, it's a lot louder.
On the island?
You can hear the difference in the signal intensity. So it sounds like our sloth actually might have left the one island and swam to one of these little islands right here, which is pretty cool.
Are they good swimmers?
They're actually really good swimmers, believe it or not. They swim much better than they walk. So a lot of times people see sloths swimming across the Panama Canal. So pretty exciting that our sloth actually sounds like she swam. The results of the big study is that actually sloths move a lot more than we thought. They're not just sedentary creatures that stay in the same tree. we found that some sloths actually travel hundreds of meters a day, while others will just sit in the same tree for 4 or 5 days and then maybe move 2 trees over. So their movement is actually very different based on which individual it is.
All right. So she's right up there. I think I might see her actually. I think she's straight above me. Right above there.
Wow. Where's the face?
Her face, she's actually kind of sitting like this, upright. Like that.
So this time, Bryson climbs up the tree. He has no harness, no rope. I tell you, he's a real monkey. It's amazing.
Hi, John. Thank you. Okay, I got her.
Bryson uses a long pole to capture the sloth, which tries to escape.
Okay. There we go. There we go.
Wow. Nice.
I need a pole. Right like that. All right.
Wow, it's a girl?
Yep, so this is our girl.
Yeah. Wow.
Hi.
Attack. Oh, I was going to say.
Oh yeah, they will. They'll
They
pinch
will
you.
attack, huh?
It's such a small creature, but still equipped with pretty sharp claws. I still have some souvenirs from my contact with sloths.
Well, they spend their whole life, in the trees,
Yeah.
so it actually takes energy to open their claws. They can keep them closed with no energy, so
Oh,
they don't
yeah.
expend any energy hanging.
Do they bite?
No, they don't really bite, but they'll definitely try to claw you. Especially mothers with their young, they'll be real defensive of babies. But she's pretty calm. She's pretty chill.
She's lovely. She's so sweet.
It's a really great animal to work with because you can hold them without sedating them. And so for me, it's so special to be able to get to actually hold the animal that I work with a lot.
Yeah.
So I get to develop a relationship with them. Whereas a lot of animals, like monkeys or something, you get to touch them once when you initially catch them, and then you rarely ever see them again. 3.1 kilograms? Nice. So she has gained weight since we last saw her.
Oh, great.
So she's been eating.
Here you go.
The female can now regain her freedom. In her own way, she is contributing to the conservation of her species by allowing Bryson to study her movements. The brown-throated sloth is not an endangered species. In fact, it is the most abundant of all sloth species. But other species of sloth are not so lucky. The team heads to the small island of Escudo de Veraguas, where Bryson is studying the pygmy sloth. Many scientists consider it the rarest mammal on the planet.
But I'm really the only person in the world looking at sleep in wild animals in their natural environment. And the first thing we found out is looking at sloths. Sloths in captivity sleep like 15, 16 hours a day, and sloths in the wild sleep 9. There's this huge difference just in one species that we looked at, and that's the first thing we ever did. So I'm trying to unlock the mysteries of sleep in wild animals in their natural habitat. We arrived at Escudo last night at about midnight and set anchor, and then we woke up this morning, and it's been really nice all morning. And we're going to go out to the island probably in the next hour or so and go see if we can re-find some of the pygmy sloths that I have radio collars on.
Bryson and his assistant Sebastian have installed radio collars on 10 pygmy sloths. Now they need to find the animals again.
The sloths that I put radio collars on are all on that side of the island right over here. And to get there, we got to go around the island this way, through the channel, and into the mangroves.
Boat driver, ready?
I'm ready when you're all ready.
Let's go.
Okay.
We don't actually know how many pygmy sloths there are, but estimates vary from as small as 63 to maybe a few hundred. And these pygmy sloths have been cut off from the mainland for almost 9,000 years. And in that time, they developed a very small body size, so they're about 40% smaller than the mainland sloths. And it just goes to show you how quickly evolution can happen in species.
Many scientists believe that the pygmy sloths on Escudo de Veraguas Island live only in the mangrove forests, the highly productive marine ecosystem that flourishes in the intertidal zone.
Mangrove forests grow between high tides and low tides on the coast, and that is where Bryson has installed tracking collars.
Just look straight in the middle of these branches. Straight in there, there's like a dark clump. It's on the back side of the branch. Yeah, it's right up there.
Really small.
You can see his face just looking at us.
He's looking at us. Ah.
Yeah. This is the same spot where I caught a sloth last month. So this could be her. But I can't see a radio collar, so I'm not sure.
But it's not so tiny.
No, they're actually, I mean, they can be kind of big, but they are definitely smaller than the mainland sloths. And their skulls are actually much smaller and have different forms on the top of the skull. So because it's such a different developmental size in the skulls, they're actually considered to be a different species. You know, they're marooned out here on this island. They have nowhere else to go. And if they're only living in just the mangroves, that's a tiny habitat for the whole species. And right now, actually, a lot of times people cut down mangroves for charcoal, and that makes their habitat much smaller. So it's very difficult because they have such a small habitat to begin with. And every time they lose a little bit of habitat, it means less area for them to live. Really, every trunk counts in these mangroves because the pygmy sloths really do rely on them. For me, it's so exciting to be able to work with a brand new species because most people never get to do that in their lifetime. And this sloth was just discovered 10 years ago. We're just trying to find out the basic science of the species. I mean, we don't even know how long they live. We really don't know anything about them. And so working out here right now, the main goal is just to understand a little bit more about their natural history and their life. Right now, I'm going to try to climb up a little bit and bring him or her down and just do a visual inspection to see how big it is, and also if it has a radio collar. And if not, we'll just let it go. There we go. And if you grab him, just like a baby doll from the back.
Yeah. Okay. Like a baby.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you have to baby. Remember. So that's a male, right?
This is a male sloth because it has this patch right here, and it actually has an oil on it that smells kind of sweet. And that's an attractant for female sloths. So they can smell that oil from a long ways away, and they know it's a male sloth.
We found ourselves in an area of the island where Bryson insisted we go to greet a family of local fishermen, Nobe Aboriginals, I think. They're Aboriginal people who have been living on the island for generations and have really developed a kind of harmony with nature. They live mainly from fishing. They manage to sell a little, some fish, a few lobsters. But it's marvelous. When we arrived, it was the children who came to greet us. That's often the case. They were playing on the beach, and slowly we joined in. We spent hours. Often, contact between scientists and local communities is difficult enough, but there I found it really interesting because often it's the children who actually introduce us to the adults. And then every time you can create a contact between scientists and local communities, I think it's really important. It was really a beautiful moment. Yes, a lovely moment.
look, it's eating. There's a sloth right there. It's a female. Yeah, she's eating a leaf. She's got it right in her mouth. Oh, she's got a baby. Let's see if we're real quiet. Maybe we won't scare her. Oop, she got my shirt. Hey, come here. Oh. Wow, look at her. She is beautiful. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful animal. And look, she doesn't have a radio collar, so this is a new sloth with a baby.
That's a good thing to, see a baby. If there's less than 100, that's good news.
Yeah, so that's one more for the population at least. Yeah. And a baby this size is probably about 9 months old, I'd say. So that's a pretty big baby. Oh, yeah. He's just holding on to her. All right, let's let her go eat some more. She looks hungry. Come back over here, mommy. Come on. Right here. Let's see. She was right on this one. Let's see. All right. It's one of the rarest mammals on Earth, and there's 2 of them right there.
What a privilege to be here.
Part of my research in working with pygmy sloths is to understand more about their life requirements, how long they live, and what parts of the island they really are using. So what I did is went out and caught 10 pygmy sloths, put the radio collars on them, and let them go back in their trees. And then we went out there to re-catch them and re-find them to see where they've gone in the past few months. And what I really wanted to find is that they weren't just using the mangrove patches, that they were actually using the rest of the island, because there's only about 10 hectares of mangroves on the island, but the whole island is 3.5 square kilometers, so that's a very small patch of mangroves. So the boop, boop, boop. That's Leo.
Leo.
So he's back over this way. Oh,
Okay.
there he is.
Oh yeah, right there.
Yeah, look at him, just kind of, he's laying right on his back. They expose their bellies like that and kind of warm themselves up. Look at him just swinging around in the tree.
In the mangroves again.
Yeah, he's still in the mangrove, so he hasn't really gone anywhere in the past month or so. When I caught him originally and put the collar on him, he was maybe 10 meters over that way.
Oh yeah.
So he's not moving very much.
What's there?
Another sloth.
Yeah.
Wow. And like 5 meters away.
Looks like a male, eh?
Yep. You can see the orange on his back right there?
Yeah.
He's also a male. So Leo maybe has some competition next to him.
Yeah. Let's see if we can find some more.
I've got 9 more to go.
Yeah.
The team traveled the territory, focusing its research near mangrove forests. In the days that followed, Bryson was able to find 9 of the 10 pygmy sloths equipped with radio collars. But despite searching for days, one was still missing, which worried Bryson.
When you have a total population estimated at about 60 individuals, of course, each animal counts. We really covered the area. We looked everywhere, but to no avail.
I can't tell which way the sound's coming from. It seems to be all over the place. I wonder, it could be bouncing off of the water or the mangroves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
one signal that we just can't find. I don't know, maybe with your guys' help we can go find it.
Yeah. We should take the Zodiac, it's gonna be easier.
Before leaving, Bryson wanted to speak with local families to get some help in their search. Sebastian, his assistant, knows the people of the island very well.
Está cerquita, así ahora los chiquillos se asustan. Por acá llega, hay mucho sol. Ellos vienen, sí.
What she says that she had a well back there, and the sloth would come around because these are clean animals. They come down to the well, to poop in the well. She thinks that the one that live in the mangrove, they live in the mangrove, but there is a lot more right behind in the jungle here.
So let's check in the forest then. For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
What an amazing revelation. According to these families, pygmy sloths can also be found in the interior of the island in the rainforest, so their distribution is not limited only to mangroves. Of course, this information is crucial for our search for the missing sloth, but it could also become essential for science itself.
So I'm marking the locations of the ones that I found so far, and number 5 is the one that I just don't know where he went. Hopefully we can find him. So Sebastian, let's check this cove right here, the Horseshoe Cove. It sounds like he might be right over here. Oh. All right, I got him on the 900 frequency, so he must be straight back that way.
Okay, guys, we're gonna have to tie the boat. Yep.
Good for it, Sebastian. All right.
Thank you.
The signal that we were following with the radio collar led us into the heart of the island, deep into the rainforest. It was quite something.
Oh yes, it was terrible. We sank deep into the mud. You could almost think the mud was alive.
There were all sorts of insects that seemed to enjoy feasting on our flesh. I don't think wearing shorts was a very good idea.
To be sure.
Sounds like it's just over this way, I think. I think she's right up here. Yeah, you could just see her fur right up there.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to get a closer look at her and just see how she looks and do a physical examination. It's been 6 weeks since I last saw her.
Hey, Bryson, watch out, man. Careful. Mind it break, man.
Hey, buddy. Okay. Ready? Coming here. Sweet.
Great. Whew.
Victoria! Hey! Whoa, you're looking big. Oh man, she looks great. Look at her. She looks very healthy.
So she makes quite a distance from the mangrove forest to here.
Yeah, she moved quite a distance actually, over 800 feet in the past couple weeks, which for a sloth, that's a big distance. When I first caught her, she was in the top of a very large mangrove tree, and now she's spending her time in this beautiful tropical forest on the interior of the island. So it's hard to say which she likes better.
Yeah.
But here she definitely has a wider variety of plants to eat.
Yeah.
Kind of like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet with lots of different things to choose from. One thing I think that this shows is that even though the mangroves are being cut, that may not be as big of a risk for the pygmy sloths, because if they're able to eat other things in the forest, at least they have other food sources besides just the mangroves.
What is the size of the island?
The island is 3.5 square kilometers, and only I think 10 hectares of that entire island is mangroves. The rest is this type of tropical forest. So they estimated 63 sloths being in this 10 hectares. So that would be something like 6 sloths per hectare. The island is 3.5 square kilometers. That's 350 hectares. That's something like 1,800 sloths, potentially, if it's the same density in the mangroves as in the forest. So it could be that actually the pygmy sloth is not as rare as we thought. Still only on this one island, but maybe more numbers, which is good.
What's the next step now?
The next step would be trying to figure out how big the population is in the forest and actually doing an expedition out here in the middle of the island. But finding them is very difficult. Even if you spend weeks out here, I think you might not have an accurate idea of just how many sloths there are.
Ready to go?
All right, Victoria.
Back to home, sweet home.
She's going her own way.
She knows where she's going.
She knows exactly where she's going.
Yeah.
It was knowledge of the territory by the local people that really guided Bryson on his quest, and it opened a new avenue for research. This is interesting because if the population of pygmy sloths of Escudo de Veraguas covers the whole of the island, well, maybe we will be obliged to review the status of the species, and this is great news. And good news about the environment is really needed.